dedicated bus lanes. So I'm going to be nuanced here, but to me this is different than just saying everyone supports BRT. What I'm seeing in this data is everyone's supporting buses that don't stop in traffic. And that there's probably different ways we can implement that solution. Love the flex lane idea for transit, because it sounds like we might not even need new asphalt to do that, which would be a huge bonus, because there's other implications to widening roads that we talked about with 224 in the past around wildlife, community safety. And then what do you do with where it goes, right? So part of the overall circulation plan here is to be curious how these solutions play downstream. Are we moving a bottleneck or are we fixing something? So like that next time. What else we got here? Yeah, so when we talk about the flex lanes though, I would like to hear more about why that couldn't be leveraged for private vehicles, especially during pinch times, you know, when folks are trying to leave town. Like, so coming in town seems like more of that overall circulation issue, so where the car's gonna go if we get more in. Leaving town where the roads have higher capacity, be interested if that makes sense, one, both, neither.
Yeah, I can touch on that. Sure. Jump in as well, but there's really two components when you're talking about adding capacity coming, and again, to your point, it is mostly coming into town, right? So when you're adding capacity in town, that capacity will fill up, and those cars have to go somewhere. And you're talking about adding parking in town essentially, right? You have to make up for that flow of traffic coming into town. The second component is, and you kind of hit on it as well, is you're sort of moving that choke point, right? A lot of the people coming down 248, I see a lot of people turn left onto Bonanza, right? And that road's already congested, so then you have to start talking about adding capacity to that road, right? And then as you get onto Deer Valley Drive, well, that's also where 224 comes in, it's congested as well, and that's where sort of the problem lies, right? You add capacity everywhere, you have the parking everywhere, and that's why we decided to move forward with that transport solution.
But going the other way, it's the reverse, right? The funnel gets bigger.
Sure, yeah, and the outbound, I don't know if you want to touch on it, but it's less of an issue, it's more of like, what do you do with the cars that come in with that new capacity? It's problematic.
I think it comes down just to how you want to balance your bills, what are your bills? Are your bills to get people out of their car into transit? You could at some point look at, can you add cars to that dedicated bus lane, and what does it do to the overall service? But you wouldn't want to, lower the service that you're providing through buses by adding cars to it. And so that trade-off is going to always be there. I don't think it's something we could discount today, but we could certainly look at in the future. But goal one was to get people out of cars into transit, let fewer cars into the city. And so, you're just, those are goals right at the start are going to be what we're going to drive the outcomes here. But, I mean, it's definitely something to look at. I don't know that there's one, actually there's one in Nashville that allows cars in there, in the bus lane. But it's a very certain time of the day, and it's not during peak because they don't want cars in there during the peak. And so I think there's some issues to resolve, but this is what we're looking at.
I couldn't help but think of Hotel California, but it's the opposite. But honestly, so we don't have to answer it tonight. When this comes back, those are things I'd love to hear more about. And really be mindful about new asphalt, really be mindful about neighborhood impacts beyond just transit benefits. So we really see the full picture of pros and cons for the transit solutions, and reiterating no to the rail trail, let's preserve it, and even look at other ways that we can improve moving around through the corridor that don't have to do with vehicular travel or aerial travel or anything. Thanks.
Great work. Thanks for bringing this to us. I've just kind of always assumed we were headed to the same place, which is bus rapid transit on corridor. It's fastest for speed to value. It serves the most people. It's most flexible. Rubber tires can be moved. Buses can be added. It just makes sense for a corridor like this. So the rail trail has always been a non-starter for me, so I'm comfortable with moving the rail trail and the and light rail and automated guideway transit. I think the sooner we can pursue the solution that we know we're headed to, the the sooner we can boil things up. Uh, Yeah, so sort of same with Jeremy, doesn't necessarily mean, adding more pavement with the transit flex lane, not prescribing a BRT solution, but it seems like we're headed that way and just keep heading on that road.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, thank you, Julia, thank you, Shane, and Alexis, I knew it, almost 3 out of 4, 3.5 out of 4. No, thank you for, this has been a long-running study project, and it's, this is important. I mean, this is the most important part of the process, is learning about the different opportunities, what's in front of us, and trying to match those and mesh those with the goals of the community, right? Is the hardest part of this job. And Connor, you said 60 some odd emails. I mean, I remember typing out about 58 replies this past 9 days. And all of them were individual. I don't think anybody got the same reply. So happy to do that. That's why we sit in these seats. And I think I urged every single person to, my numbers on the email, my email address, have to talk, call, speak, walk, anytime. So, let's, it's clear, we don't want to conceptualize over, on anything on top of the rail trail, on the rail trail. We don't want to destroy the rail trail. We don't want to remove the rail trail. It's clear that that's important. Next item, the evaluation of the modes. Just have a couple of quick questions because, and I'll tell you what kind of informs these questions, because as a transportation liaison, I've been involved with the discussion of the State Route 224 BRT, right? And they did the same similar process. Exactly what we've done here was done 2015, 16, 17, some of that, and they came up with a locally preferred alternative, which was compelling at the time because it was less expensive than other modes at the time. And if I remember correctly, originally the original estimates were in the $50 to $55 million range. And then last November, we learned that it might be $100 million. And then this spring, we're now told it's $120 million. And I wouldn't be surprised that when it's all said and done, it's $150 million. And, my big problem with that, escalation of cost is what we get for it. High Valley Transit in their documentation, they were planning to run, I think 15-minute headways is what they're suspecting. On a 15-minute headway in a bus rapid transit, what sort of seats per hour are we looking at? And on that one, BRT 224 from Kimball into Park City.
Yeah, so as it relates to 248, our next step is doing the traffic demand model that is associated with that. So that's that level 2 screen. That's where we're going to get a lot of those numbers. I could only guess or make assumptions at this point as far as the ridership usage. I know with the 224, the right of way was a huge concern. That's where a lot of the impacts came from and delays, my understanding, and involved with that. And that's why we kind of want to keep the flex line conversation alive.
Sure.
I think it could come into play where right of way is tight, we don't want to widen, things like that.
You just touched on the point that I'm trying to get to. But just to dig into just a little further on this, because I think it's important. There's a concept, when we talk about renewable energy and energy costs, there's a concept called the level cost of energy. So it's not just about what it costs to put up a solar panel and then get electricity from it, right? In order for that to power the grid, there's a lot more infrastructure that you need for that to be a reliable source of power. You need storage, transmission, all that stuff. So if you look at the whole cost, it can be different and less compelling than that initial upfront cost. So as we move forward like this, I really would love to understand what, because this is a generational investment. So let's look out 30 years. What, over a 30-year timeline, what does that sort of cost? Because anything that has a large component of people, employees, that cost is going to escalate very rapidly over time. I mean, inflation here for wages is pretty high. So I'd love to do that, and that might be a way, to do dedicated lanes. We may have to do some widening of that corridor, which if it impacts PC Hill is going to be very expensive, right? So I'm super interested in the flex lane idea, so that we don't have to chop off a portion of PC Hill and have major disruptions to traffic on 248 for 2 years. And you had touched on that before, and that's another way to kind of economize on this and get better bang for the buck. And then just the last question, If we, if we ran, 15-minute headways, if we had to purchase an additional 8 to 10 buses, we've had conversations before as a council and in the chambers with staff about the transportation depot over in Iron Horse being at or near capacity. I don't want to be entirely prescriptive, but I would imagine we'll probably have to expand our ability to maintain and service buses, correct?
Yeah, I think there's, especially, and I don't want to assume that we're moving with BRT at this moment, but there's the opportunity to cannibalize some of the routes that are coming from the park and ride right now, the Silver especially, that can turn into the BRT route. And that we can utilize some of those buses. We'll probably have to purchase new buses if we're bumping the frequency, but if the travel time reliability is increasing as well, then the stop can be on that. It's lower, but yeah, to your point, we'll likely look at purchasing buses with this.
I would assume so. I just want to, because if we're trying to really honestly evaluate different modes, I mean, there probably is, there is a, kind of storage and maintenance need that will come with buses, as it will with any other, if there happened to be some other vehicle, right? So I just want, it's not listed as a, a challenge for one, but it is for the other. So I just want to make sure we're being completely.
Yeah, the point we're trying to make there is, with light rail and also especially with AGT.
Right.
Yeah, so if I can also add, when we come back, we can come back with these additional modes and what it would take from a maintenance standpoint and the vehicle kind of sizing or impacts, because I think you hit the nail on the head. The space that we're gonna need for like a rail yard is very different than the space you would need for BRT, and that could be a decision point or some information that you would want as you're moving forward with evaluating these.
So just going through what you have here, just, had a couple of just thoughts in my mind and how it relates to like the BRD on 224, which, we've seen what's happened there. I think that's it for now, so.
Add real quick to that, as you move into NEPA, at least our FTA will require you to analyze the storage in the OM side of it. So those questions will get answered no matter what you think, and the impacts associated with that build will have to be analyzed as well, so all that will come together. Like your point is, it's not a whole point today, and there's potentially some expansion that we need.
Sure, okay, thank you, appreciate that. Thank you, Eleanor, thank you, Julie, thank you.
Ed?
Oh, yeah. First question. Eliminate the rail trail, of course. You don't want it, we don't want it. It's not gonna happen. And when I ran 2 years ago, I got asked in Prospect all the time, like, are you for it? I'm like, no, it's not gonna happen. So, take it out. Let's move on. And the only reason I have to study is because we're required, I think, for funding to look at all the things. So, looked at it, we got your opinions, I'm good with that. So, the next thing, I have a problem, and this happened just the last meeting, when I asked what about traffic? Yeah, like Bill asked, what about traffic, how many people going back on frontage road? And you said you don't know. And I'm like, how am I supposed to make a decision on any of this if I don't know? I mean, that seems to me the key point. What are you expecting, or if you wanna move?
So I would look at that point, and that level of detail is the next level.
Yeah, but I have
And I
to
know I
decide
said that.
stuff
I
before
got
that.
that. Yeah, we've told you that like 3 times now, I
Yeah.
understand that. And I appreciate the consistency of the ask, because it's absolutely something you're going to need to know in order for you to invest that next level of investment. We started a big picture, we looked at a bunch of alternatives, we needed to get through them quickly, so we had a selection or a matrix of criteria that we used. We get to that next level, we use another level of criteria. What you're asking is the next level. The impacts along 248, you've also, all of you asked, I think last time, what are they? How much widening is enough? What do you need? Again, that is in the next level of detail. And I appreciate the ask last time, and the fact that we don't have that information today is not lost on me. What you asked us to do last time was go ahead and publish with what we had and get their done. And that's what we did. We did no further analysis. We actually just asked the public, what do you think? And we saw the slides. Now we're prepared with the conversation tonight to move to that next level and come back with those questions answered. I'm sure Conrad doesn't want to sit here again and have those same questions thrown at us and not have some answers to them. But that is that level 2 detail that we want to get to.
Yeah, my question really is, why is it level 2? Because now at this point, we kind of narrowed it down to one option. Bus on 248. That's it, that's all that's left. Maybe you can do a flex lane, maybe, but I mean, we've already made our decisions. And now you're gonna come up with the numbers that support the decision or don't. And I won't understand why this is not part of the level 1.
Well,
I'm making decisions in the blind. I don't know how many buses, I don't know frequency, I don't know parking spot, I have no idea.
yeah, the reason we wanted to come to you today was just to get your feedback on what you want to see moved into the level 2. This is just based off the analysis we've done so far. We haven't necessarily eliminated any of these alternatives yet. We haven't eliminated any modes. What we can do, if we do focus our efforts, we can get better information about specific modes. We can look at different, like with the alignments of if we want to move with BRT on 248, we can look at different alignments, how flex lanes impact right of way. We can spend the time in that level 2 analysis to really bolster that and look at the fine details.
Yeah,
Oh,
Go ahead, no finish.
no, I was just gonna say that's the whole reason we're here today, is just to ask for your feedback on what you want to see moving to that more detailed approach. But it does take time and money, and that's kind of where we're at, so.
Well, you look at the purpose and need and screen all the things that we've eliminated, got told to do. I still think reversible flex lanes could work, but I don't know because I don't know the traffic. I still think some kind of zipper lane could work, but I don't know because we don't have any numbers. A light rail down 248 maybe work, I don't know, but I don't know the numbers. It seems like I'm being forced into one thing, and that's buses on 248, and we'll give you the information. Not that I don't agree, that's probably the best solution. It's got what we got, we have the infrastructure, we've got the best buses, we have a park and ride already, I get it. But I still feel like I'm not getting what I need, as far as information. So, we'll leave it at that. Right now, all we have is buses, down 248, I guess.
Maybe another way to kind of reframe that question is, we're not asking everybody to pick their favorite thing and the thing that they think works best. We're trying to eliminate the ones that don't work for this community, that we're hearing are impactful negatively, potentially. And we do have data to support some of these things in a very positive way. So I think it's maybe more of a question of what fits this community, what are we hearing from them, what's worth spending more time and analysis on, because it may not be all of these things.
I would think that on this slide and stuff here, so we're fairly past the rail trail at this point. And now we're down to, of these 3, AGT is just, it does not perform well. Light rail is not bad. So if the direction is, you know what, we want to kick that around for a minute to see what those numbers actually are, I think give that direction, and the team can get through that very quickly. The head-to-head competition between buses and a train is a good conversation to have, and I think that it's a fair point. You don't have something to make that decision, if you're not comfortable making it, direct the team to go get the numbers that you need to make that decision. I think we came here tonight with a recommendation, with a plan to move forward, and it was always that light rail. You can go either way, and if you feel confident, you want us to do that, give us that direction, I think these guys will get it done.
Alright, so, not going rail trail. Let's be clear about that. Let's concentrate on 248, flex lanes, zipper lanes, BRT lanes. I want to see it all. I want all the info, all the numbers, the price, the cost, the timing. And again, there's the big elephant in the room. What do you do with the pinch points? I can only bring people in so far. I need to see a plan to get people from the park and ride right to the resorts, or as directly as possible, and the timing. So, I don't want to spend money building all these fancy lanes when you're just going to be pinched at this one point of a high school bonanza, or whatever it's going to be,
hard no on the rail trail. And, you know, I also just want to bring this up. I think this was talked about 6 or 7 years ago, and it seems to just be like a reoccurring thing every 6 or 7 years. We talk about bringing a train on the rail trail. So I think in the future, it would be helpful if you're still with the city and this comes up again, that we bring all this information back, because the studies were done 7, 8 years ago. The community came out in droves and said they didn't want it then, and so we should definitely respect what was already done in the past on that. To answer the question about the flex lanes, the egress out of town, to me, seems to make more sense, because coming into town, people come at very different times of the morning. Everyone is leaving the resort at the same time. So to answer your question of what is the policy, or what was, I can't remember exactly what you said, but yeah, what is the direction you want? It's that everyone's leaving at the same time, they're not all coming in at the same time. Which also brings me to one more question. Oh, sorry, was it, can you hear me? Sure. One more question for next time is, to Ed's point of how many cars are coming into town, it would be helpful if we understood where their cars are going. Similar to what we talked about a month ago, of what kind of housing does our workforce want to live in? We actually hadn't asked the workforce. And so this goes to that same thing. Are people going to the resorts? Is it schools? Is it Main Street? And maybe that can help lead our conversation in, do we want to have a park once philosophy where in town? I think that we just need to understand where people are going once they pass the high school. So that also brings me to the school conversation, which I bring up every single year too. And I think it's really important that we have these conversations with the schools, and a lot of the traffic coming in is at the exact same time that schools are in, and how can we work with the schools on drop-off times and parents dropping off, and who's allowed to ride buses and who's not allowed to ride buses. And I know very well that if you have a 5-year-old, you're not going to let them walk to school, so yes, you are dropping your child off at school. So if you live outside of that bus zone. So I think that we've got to try to work with our stakeholders and really ensure that we have all the right stakeholders in these conversations as well. And then my question for you is one more question about BRT and dedicated lanes. So the next conversation topic is about park and ride, and where we would want to park and ride, because park and ride is the most important part of this entire conversation. We can't have buses without park and rides. So if the council doesn't move forward with wanting to look at Gordo and they only look at Richardson Flat, would you be proposing putting bus lanes then on Richardson Flat Road? We've heard from Clark Ranch, we heard from some people this evening that those roads are already very, very clogged with people coming in and out. So is that another option? Would we be adding more pavement there? And what does that look like? So that would also have to come back with the park and ride.
So we had some updates on that as part of the park and rides discussion. We looked at the good access, we looked at intersection improvements as well, so we can talk about that a little bit more. But again, there's yes and no. We can do some improvements, we can do a lot of improvements, we can do no improvements there. Obviously, there's some congestion that's happening at that intersection for buses making that left turn, especially in the wintertime. But we can talk about that and get some more graphics on that.
Okay, great, that'll be coming. Okay, so that these flow together. Yeah, so the last thing I hear out in the world is we've got to make this convenient for people to ride the bus. It's just the number one thing we hear. It's convenience. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes isn't going to change you getting on a bus, but the location of the park and ride is important, and how often the buses are coming, and then how easy it is to get out of town once those buses are leaving. So, thanks, good. And thanks for these presentations. And thank you so much for hosting that meeting in Prospector. I think that the turnout showed how passionate this community is about not only the rail trail, but also helping us find a solution to transportation and traffic.
And we have another one Saturday morning, Prospector.
Yeah, to Ed's point, during the warmer months, once a month, I rotate mayor and council in the neighborhood on a Saturday morning. We bring the donuts and the coffee, you come walk your dog, stroll your kids or ride your bike, and stop by and just say hello and share what you're interested in. And so this coming Saturday, after tomorrow, Ed and I will be at Prospector Park. I believe that's the location.
Little Moab.
From 9:30 to 11, and so, again, please feel free to stop by, we'd love to see you there. First of all, I want to thank the community. You have spoken loud and clear. And not only, in the surveys, but in the many emails we've received over the last several days. And we really appreciate that. We can't do our job unless we're hearing from all of you. So I appreciate your passion for this. I appreciate you showing up tonight and reaching out. And I really appreciate the council saying no to doing that on the messing with the rail trail. But I will say, and I've spoken to this before, I am increasingly concerned about safety on the rail trail, specifically between pedestrians and bikes. And I've seen so many near misses with moms with strollers and dads holding kids' hands, and bikes, especially the electrified bikes, and many visitors that aren't comfortable riding them yet. A few years ago, and looking back, maybe I don't remember how many years ago, our trails team conducted a survey and a study on the rail trail about some improvements that could be made, some safety improvements. One of the things that was suggested was maybe, a dedicated paths for bikes and for pedestrians to remove that friction. And so I'm curious if the council would be interested in having our trails team, I guess, because you got your hands full with Recreate 248, bring those results back to us and see if there's any fruit from that effort that we might want to look at now.
Sure, yeah, and I hear the same every day, so, go ahead.
So I was on the Walk 2 committee and I advocated strongly for 2 lanes over there. Fast lane and slow lane. You wanna speed up when you bike, go hang out with the fast speed. You wanna walk with your stroller, your dog, your kid, and not have to look over your shoulder every time of who's speeding up on you. I'm all for it. I want to have that discussion.
We've got the results, and it hasn't been, well, I don't know, I've been on this bench too long. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I think it's really valid.
Yeah, I think, so actually at the groundbreaking today for the community center, I spoke to former council member Dwelly, who said that he led the effort to actually get a little more width on that trail so that we could actually have separate lanes, and so he almost got his head taken off. But, yeah, let's go for it again. Let's have that conversation.
Okay, I think we could, thank you. So with that,
Can I just say one last thing before we, so